All right, hello everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. We're just going to give it a couple more minutes for folks to trickle in, and then we'll get started.
How we doing, Sydney?
All right, doing pretty good. You guys ready?
I think we're good. Yeah.
All right, I'll stop my share screen here and take it away.
All right. Are we spotlighted?
Yep.
Okay, amazing. And we're recording. Yes. Okay. Awesome. Hi, everybody. My name is Maya Pelletier. I work for the Maine Aquaculture Innovation Center. And I'm here today at a pretty awesome place on Beals Island in Down East, Maine. And today we're here to explore a bivalve hatchery. So this is a virtual field trip for you all, and you're going to get to learn about this place, which is called the Down East Institute, and it's pretty awesome. And here with me today is Bree Salter, and she is the hatchery manager here. Bree, could you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your job here?
Yeah, definitely. Hi, everyone. My name is Bree Salter. Welcome to the Down East Institute. We are a marine shellfish lab and hatchery. And my job is to make sure that all of the animals for the season are produced and sent out the door as well as we possibly can.
Awesome. So, Bree, you said the animals you produce. What types of animals do you grow here?
We grow bivalves.
All right. And what's a bivalve?
A bivalve is an animal with two shells, and all of their organs are in the inside. They can close their shells to protect all that precious tissue and organs on the inside. They can open them to feed and spawn.
Okay. And what bivalves are we growing in Maine for the most part?
In Maine, we're growing mostly oysters, mussels, and clams.
Okay. Oysters, mussels, and clams. Excellent. All right. And here in a bivalve hatchery, why is a hatchery so important for aquaculture?
The hatchery is really important for farmers to be able to have a consistent seed source so that they can make all of the sustainable shellfish that they will for the year. And we want to be a reliable source for them so that they can continue creating that wonderful and sustainable food source.
Awesome. So it kind of keeps everything in the aquaculture industry that we do out on the farms going.
Absolutely.
Awesome. And so we're actually going to do a hatchery tour today. So we're going to get to look at all the cool stuff that's going on here in this lab. But before we head into the hatchery, I am just going to ask Bree, could you give us a little bit of a quick overview of what we're going to see in the hatchery itself?
Yeah, so the hatchery process, to summarize, is basically taking something that happens out in the wild in the springtime and making it happen in the wintertime in January, February, and March so that we can produce a seed-sized animal for people to put out on their farms. So we take the adult animals in starting in January and use temperature and microalgae to trick them into thinking that it's springtime so they put the weight onto their gonads and then we can spawn them and make babies.
All right. So this is the whole hatchery process is beginning with an adult animal that you're encouraging to reproduce and make offspring that you can then take out to the farm.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. All right. So we're gonna head into the hatchery here in just a minute. You may see some of the other folks that are working in the hatchery today as we're going. If you have questions about things that we are doing or things that you see today, you can ask your teacher to put them into the question and answer box at the bottom of your screen. And if you put your whatever your school name is, we'll shout out the school name when we ask the question, and then we can give you an answer. All right, are you ready to head into the hatchery?
Ready.
All right, let's go. Welcome to the hatchery, folks. So, Bree, where are we heading first?
We're going to start in the most important room in the facility, which is the algae room.
Okay, guys, we're heading to the algae room. So it's up the stairs over here. Okay. Come on in, guys.
Welcome.
Okay, so this is the algae room. What is algae, first of all?
So the algae is one of the most important. Oh, algae is a small-celled organism that we culture here in the hatchery to feed to the bivalves. It's the most important part of tricking those bivalves into thinking that it's springtime so that we can spawn them.
Okay, and so you're growing all of your algae in this room.
Yep. All of our algae starts in our stock culture room, which is attached to this mass culture room that we're standing in right now. And so we take our stock algae and use it to inoculate the K tubes or Kelwall tubes in this room so that we can keep all of our animals fed.
Okay, and so all of the bivalves in this hatchery are eating the algae that is grown here.
Yes, everything from the brood stock to the larvae to the juveniles before they leave the facility.
Amazing. And how many species of algae are you growing in this room?
We grow 13 different species of microalgae. In this room, we have about 7, and that's because a varied diet, each of the different species provides a different nutritional content, and a varied diet keeps the bivalves really healthy, just like you and I need to make sure that we eat salads in addition to hamburgers.
Okay, so this is like the snack bar for the bivalves.
Definitely.
Okay, could you actually show us some of the K-tubes up close?
Yeah.
Come on, we'll have the camera come in close so you can see them.
So these are some K-tubes that I inoculated just earlier today. You'll see they're very light in color because the cells aren't dense yet. And this is an example of a tube that is harvestable and ready to feed out. So you can see that the color of the tube is nice and rich and dark. That means that there's lots of cells in there. So it's a good time to feed it out to the animals.
Amazing. And why are they different colors? So we're seeing some greens, some yellows, and some browns here.
Yeah, that is part of the different, all the different species that we grow. Each of them are so different from one another that they have a different color to them.
Amazing. Thank you. So what comes after the algae room? Where are we going to head next?
We're going to go down to our broodstock area, which is where we condition all of our animals to be able to make the babies.
All right. So we're heading down to broodstock now, guys. We're going to see the adult animals that they start out with before they make the babies. Feel free to take a look in the tank too.
We have some scallops conditioning in here.
All right. Yeah. So if you didn't hear, these are adult scallops. So you can see we've got the females over here, it looks like, labeled. And then over here, are these the males?
Yes, those are the males.
Okay. So Bree, can you tell us what we're looking at with these broodstock? You use that word. I'm not sure that everyone knows what it means.
So broodstock is a term that explains or that's used for adult animals that you use to make more animals out of. So it's also used in land agriculture as well as aquaculture. So it's the animals that we're taking to condition, we're feeding them the microalgae, and we're making more babies from them. So we use these conditioning tanks here, as well as the conditioning units, the chilling units, to keep the water temperature at a constant temperature so that the animals think that it's springtime. They eat lots of the microalgae, and that goes for their pets.
Awesome. Would it be okay if we actually take a look at one of these guys? Or a different, if there's another tank, would be awesome to see it like a whole bivalve.
Okay, sure. Yeah, let's go take a look. So we have this mussel set aside.
Okay, so this here's a mussel, a blue mussel, even if it doesn't look quite blue.
So you can see the two shells, the bivalves there, and then all of the organs are in the inside. They also have gills, gonads, a lot of the same stuff that you and I have. Anything else about the mussel, Maya?
They have super cool byssal threads that they use to attach to things, and the byssal threads are really, really strong, like steel, or even stronger, I've heard.
So these, the friends of this guy are, we are spawning today.
Oh, can we take a look at the spawning?
Absolutely.
So that would come after the brood stock, right?
Yes. So a month after the animals are in their conditioning temperatures, they should be ready to spawn. And this is what the beginning of that looks like. So they're in their acclimation bath right now. This is a 25 degrees Celsius bath, and the temperature that they were conditioning in was 12 degrees Celsius. So this way we can get them to purge out all of the mucus and any other yucky things that they might have in their shells, so that when they go to spawn, all we're getting are the nice feeding animals.
Okay. So this is all happening in a very controlled environment to make sure that you're just getting the bivalve babies.
Yes.
Okay. Awesome. And once we have these bivalve babies, where are they going?
Let's take them into the larvae room.
Okay, the larvae room. So our next stop, guys, that's the larvae room. All right, welcome to the larvae room, guys.
So this is where we're continuing to trick the animals into thinking that it's springtime. So these rooms are temperature controlled. It's a nice comfy 21 degrees Celsius in here. So that the animals continue to eat lots of microalgae and grow, and we can send them out to the farmers as soon as we can. So we have a tank of larvae right here that we can show off.
All right. So it looks kind of like cloudy water to me.
Well, that's because of the microalgae. But if we take a flashlight and focus a beam, I'm not sure if you can see that on camera, but all of the larvae that we have in the tank
Yeah,
are,
kind of like right here, we're seeing like the little dots, it looks like.
yeah, those are all the larvae, those little specks of dust.
Oh my gosh.
Quite microscopic right now, but they are still a bivalve. They have two shells that they have all their organs inside. They look a lot different than an adult bivalve right now. They have a swimming organ called the velum that they're using to swim around with and catch all the microalgae in the food.
Okay. So actually, Sydney, I think you may have a slide that shows what some bivalve larvae look like. If you're able to put that up on screen, that would be great. Could you tell us about how long the bivalves spend in this stage in these tanks as larvae?
Yes, they spend about 2 weeks in their swimming stage, especially in the hatchery where we can keep them nice and warm and constantly fed. And then after 2 weeks, they should start to develop into something that looks more like their adult form, but they're still obviously quite small.
Okay. And you mentioned that there's a few different species that you're working with here. So you said you have clams, blue mussels, and oysters, right? Do they all spend the same amount of time in this larval stage?
Roughly, yeah. Oysters we keep warmer. So when we have oysters, it feels like a rainforest in here because we can get them to settlement in more like 10 to 12 days if we keep them nice and warm. But the mussels and clams, they don't like to be that warm. So we have to keep them a little colder.
Gotcha. I think we might have an audience question.
Do. So from the Ashland District School, how big, while we're talking about larvae size, how big can the creatures get?
For the larvae or the adults. So how big can the larvae get, and then how big do the adults get?
So it depends on the species. Well, I'll start with the larvae question. When they start out, they're only a few microns across. And then when we settle them, they're about 300 to 400 microns across.
Okay.
Adult bivalves, it really depends on the species. So scallops, for example, can get really big, like this big.
Okay, so like 6 or 7 inches.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
And mussels really only get to be about that big.
Okay, so 2 or 3 inches.
The
Awesome.
species that we work with.
The species here.
Yeah.
Okay, so those are the main species, and that was from the Ashland Public Schools. And it looks like we actually have another question.
Yes,
Awesome.
from Sado Mocha Middle School. In a lab setting, how long would it take to get a mussel from larvae all the way back to broodstock size?
Whoa, that's a great question.
That is a good question. So we don't do that here, obviously, because we want to send the animals out when they're small, so that we can provide everyone with all of the animals that they need. But I would imagine if you had an animal in a lab setting that you could keep at a constant temperature and keep well fed, and you wanted to grow it from a larvae, let's go with mussels, a larvae to an adult sized animal, I think you could theoretically do that in 2 years.
2 years. And that sounds about right from what I've heard from the mussel farmer that you guys work with, that once he gets the seed, that it takes about 18 months for it to be the adult size again. So 18 months plus whatever time it was in the hatchery. So yeah, like 2 years sounds very accurate to me as well. Do we have any other questions from our schools?
We have one that's more related to our adults. So from the Searsport District Middle School, how long does each species live?
All right. How long does each species live from Searsport District Middle School?
I'm not sure about that one. Do you know, Maya?
Well, since we work in aquaculture, a lot of times what we are thinking about is how long it takes for the animal to go from the stage that we're seeing here as larvae all the way to the stage where we're selling them. And so for that, it can vary. We have organisms like mussels that are taking about 18 months. And then we have oysters, which might be 2 to 3 years, depending on water temperature. And then we have sea scallops, which tend to take much longer. Our sea scallops are usually taking 4 or 5 years to get to the market size, which is about this big. So that's what we usually think of it. But I can tell you, I've seen some bivalves left to their own devices that are this big. And they're 25 or 30 years old. So some of them can get pretty old. And actually, one of the oldest living creatures in the world was a giant clam that was found in, I think it was like Arctic conditions off of Iceland. And they named it Maine the clam. So if you search in Wikipedia for Maine the clam, you'll get to learn about a very old bivalve. So awesome. All right, so
one last
good question here, and then we'll move on to our next stage.
From Greeley Middle School, how many eggs does a female mussel provide, and how many actually survive?
That's a great question. Mussels can produce millions of eggs, each female. You didn't ask about the males, but males can produce billions of sperm. And from the time that the egg is fertilized to the time that it's settled in the hatchery, our conversion rate is typically about 50%. And then after that, I believe that it gets a lot better when they go out to the farms. But we'd have to ask farmers to be sure.
Okay, so they start out by what we would call broadcast spawning, right? They just release all of their reproductive cells, and the die-off rate at that point is pretty high, but then it goes down as they get older. Okay, cool. So lots of mortality at the beginning, lots of survival once they're a little bit more hefty, stronger.
And the conversion rate from egg to settled animal is a lot higher in the hatchery than it would be in the wild.
Oh, okay. So one of the reasons that we have facilities like this is actually to help make sure that the people who are farming are getting reliable bivalve sources, right? So it's more reliable than what we might see. Awesome. All right, very cool. So where are we going to head next, Bree?
Let's head down to see our mussel ropes.
Okay, we're going to go look at mussel ropes.
I'm just going to put this
back on here. Josh, I think you can follow me. Our cameraman is Josh. He's great.
That's okay, Maya. Thank you.
All right.
We have Ben coming right now. So hi, Ben.
Okay. Yeah. All right. So we are checking out some muscle ropes. Actually, I'll come over here so that we can both I'll be looking at this at the same time. So Bree, can you tell us what's going on here with these muscle ropes?
Yeah, so after the mussels spend their 2 weeks swimming around, they should start to develop into a juvenile. And that's when we prepare their substrate material for them, which looks like this. We wrap 75 meters of repurposed lobster rope around each of these PVC frames. And then we put 14 frames in each tank and settle about 20 million mussel larvae into the tank. And that's an estimate based on larvae that we put into a 10-liter bucket, and then we take a 1 milliliter sample out of to count it and get an estimate of how many animals that we want to put in there.
Yeah. So you said substrate. Can you define what substrate is for everyone watching?
Yeah, substrate is the material that bivalves settle onto. So they metamorphose from their larval stage to their juvenile stage. They want to stick to something so that they can open up and filter all the algae that's in the water. And the substrate is the material that they're using to settle on.
Okay. And for all of the different bivalves, are they all settling on the same substrate or are they using different substrates?
They're using different substrates. That's part of what makes my job so fun. So mussels like clams and oysters like trays. Should we go check those out?
Yeah, we can go check out some trays.
Show off this picture since we don't have any trays running right now. But these are the tanks that we typically will put them in.
Okay.
And we have them in a downwelling situation, which just means that the water is coming from the top, from the animal's standpoint, and flowing over all of the animals so they all get lots of flow and stay nice and healthy.
Okay. So we actually just had a question from Beals Elementary about the mussel ropes, and you remind me, how long does it take for the mussels to grow onto the ropes?
So in the hatchery, from the time that they're spawned to the time that they leave the facility, it takes about a month and a half.
Okay.
And then it takes another 12 to 18 months after that to get an adult mussel.
Awesome. All right. So coming back to talking about our clams and oysters, here, maybe we could take a look at up close at how big these tanks are. So Bree, how many oysters and clams are going to be in a tank like this?
Typically, we'll put about 2 million oysters in each of these large rectangular tanks. And like I said, they'll be in floating trays. Oysters, we settle with a little bit of ground up oyster shell called culch. The oysters settle right onto that culch, and then we'll sieve them off once they get a little bit bigger. Clams are a little bit different because they're not as sticky and cementy when they settle to something. We just keep them on the trays without any culch. And then they get a little bit bigger and we sieve them and move them to their new location.
Awesome. All right. So where do the mussels or clams go after this step where they're in the downwelling trays?
So oysters, we want to keep continuously moving because, like I said, they're so cementy, which is a word that I just made up, which means that when they stick to something, they cement to it and you can't get them off without harming them.
Okay.
So for oysters, we put them in oyster cones.
Okay, let's go take a look at the oyster cones. All right, so these are oyster cones, and what can you tell us about the oyster cones, Bree?
The oyster cones are great because we keep them in these cones like this, and the pumps in the bottom of the tank pump water up through each of the cones. The marble is there to help water flow through all of the animals evenly. And then also, if we were to get a power outage and our pumps were to fail, the marble keeps all of the animals from spilling out into the bottom of the tank. But this is a really great system for keeping the animals constantly moving so that they don't cement to each other or the sides of the tank.
Awesome. And just a quick shout out, if you want to see right now, this isn't actually running yet. It's a little too early in the season, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, but if you do want to see this running, if you visit the Down East Institute, you can always see it then. Or there's also a great video that was created by the Maine Aquaculture Innovation Center that features Bree talking about larvae. And in that, we have a video clip where the oyster cones are actually running. So you can get a quick look at that. And it looks like we also have another audience question.
Okay, so from Narraguagus Junior and Senior High School, what temperature does the water need to be for survival?
Ooh, for survival, the temperature can vary quite a bit. So right now, all of the oysters, clams, and mussels that live in Maine, well, most of them are experiencing -2 degrees Fahrenheit water. And what they're doing is just hibernating. And they can go up to, I don't know, oysters probably 80 degrees-ish. Mussels and clams are a little more heat sensitive and probably more like 70-ish degrees Fahrenheit.
Awesome.
All right.
Follow up on that.
Yeah.
From Beals, why is water temperature so important?
Water temperature is really important for us in the hatchery because we need to produce the animal in as an efficient way as possible so that it costs as little money as possible and we can make a big impact. So the more we focus on efficiencies, the more impact that we can make. So if we increase the water temperature of the tanks as much as we can, then we're increasing the metabolism of the animals in there. They're eating more and they're getting out the door more quickly.
Okay, so you want to kind of meet that fine balance between warm enough that you guys are making a profit, but not too warm that it's hurting the animals.
Absolutely.
Okay, and that would kind of depend on the species.
Yes.
All right, cool. Are there any other things in the hatchery that we should take a look at?
That's most of it. We could take a look at their large oyster cones, which is where the oysters go after the small cones, and then we can take a look at the bucket umbrella too, where we keep the clams.
Okay, so this you said is the large oyster cone. So this is where they're coming after that small cone upweller that we just saw. And how big are they at this point?
So they range anywhere from 1 millimeter to 2.5 millimeters when they're in this system, and this is their last stop before they're sent out to farmers.
Okay. And how many farmers per year are buying oyster fat or seed from you guys?
It's increased in the past couple of years. Right now, I believe we're selling to about 15 farms on the East Coast.
Wow. So not just in Maine either.
Exactly. We can ship seed to theoretically anywhere in the US.
Wow. So Maine oysters can go anywhere in the US and do you know which states they're currently in? Just a few would be good.
Yeah. I only know of oyster farms on the East Coast that buy from us. So most of them are in Maine. And then I would say that the rest of the majority of them are probably in Massachusetts.
Okay, so Massachusetts and Rhode Island also very happy oyster babies from Maine are going there.
Yes.
All right. And then you mentioned the another type of upwelling system. So upwelling again is just water that's coming up from the bottom, right?
Exactly.
Okay, and then downwelling is water going down from the top.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so upwelling system has for clams, right? And where would that be?
So these are right over here. I have a broken bucket to show. So we glue the piece of mesh to the bottom of a 5-gallon bucket, and then the buckets sit in this tank right in the center pipe. So we have a pump that pumps water up through all of the buckets, and we can line the tank with buckets and animals. So it's a really good way to get a lot of animals in one system and have a small footprint.
Okay. And how many clams would go in a bucket like this?
A couple thousand.
A couple thousand. And is this just your common bucket that you get from the local hardware store?
It sure is.
Okay. And do you guys make it here?
We sure do.
Awesome. So a lot of the equipment that you guys are seeing is actually made right here on Beals Island by the team.
Yep.
Okay. So cool. I think we may have another question. Just want to check with our question master over here.
Yeah, from Ashland. How long does it take to move the animals around? Maybe we can think about in a drain down situation or moving them around the hatchery. And then do you have to worry about diseases?
Ooh, okay.
Great questions.
It depends for how long does it take to move them around. It depends on what system we're talking about. So for example, larvae take a lot of time because they're so sensitive and because we keep so many of them in a concentrated area. So to move a batch of larvae from one tank to another tank, which we do every 48 hours so that we can keep things nice and healthy, it takes about half an hour. To move broodstock from one tank to another tank, it takes like 10 minutes because all you have to do is scrub the tank, fill it up, and move the animals over.
Okay.
And a follow up on that, we're wondering what tools are used to move each life stage.
Ooh, okay, good question. So for larvae, we catch all of the larvae on a fine mesh sieve, and then we take all of the animals that collect on the sieve and pour them into a bucket, and they live in the bucket until we have the tank prepared for them. For most everything else, we're just using our hands. And the question about disease, yes, they definitely get disease. They can get bacteria, viruses, fungi, everything that a normal animal can get. And we have protocols in place at the hatchery to cut down on bacteria and viruses. Like these foot mats that Josh and Maya and Tessa and I have been walking through, and just keeping things really clean so that we don't risk harming the animals.
Excellent. And I actually think, is this a sieve over here?
Yeah. Want to
Okay.
take a look?
Yeah.
It actually has some mulch in it.
Oh,
We'll talk about that a lot at once.
yeah.
So this is the mulch that we settle the oysters on.
Which we do have a question about how do the oysters cement themselves onto the mulch?
Ooh. I don't know how to answer that one.
I think that when they settle, so that's when they undergo metamorphosis, they actually kind of release this glue-like substance as soon as they have this little foot. So their little pedivellagers crawling around looking for a rock or a piece of shell. And when they sense that, they release this glue-like substance that they kind of actually glue themselves onto that rock or whatever the other, like the hard surface is. But that's just for oysters, because I know that each bivalve is a little different. So for the mussels, instead of using like a glue-like cement, they actually have their little byssal threads. So they kind of tie themselves onto rocks or onto other things like boats or docks or pretty much anything. Yeah.
Then we can go back to the sieve. So if you ignore all the mulch in there, you can see my arm through the mesh here. That's how, but you can't really see the holes. It's because it's a 105 micron mesh size. So that holes are microscopic. And that's what we use to catch all the larvae.
Okay, so anything that's larger than 105 microns will stay on top, and anything that's smaller goes through.
Exactly.
Okay. So when you do that, are you catching any of the microalgae in it, or are they all going through?
The microalgae is going through.
Okay, so the size difference then, it sounds like, between a microalgae and like a larval bivalve, the microalgae is a lot smaller.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And actually we have to pay attention to what species that we're feeding the larvae, because some of the species of microalgae that we grow here are too big. The cells are too large for the larvae to be able to eat.
Okay, so it'd be like trying to stuff a whole hamburger into your mouth at the same time.
Yes.
But you don't have any hands. So you're a bivalve, so you need the hamburger to be tiny. So you can eat it.
Exactly.
Okay. Bit of a stretch with that one. But all right. Are there any other bivalves that we could look at just to see the variety of a few others? Like maybe if we could see an oyster or a clam?
Yeah, we can see both.
Awesome.
Let's look at the clams first, since we're right here. We can talk about our clam sandwich.
The clam sandwich.
So normally these clams, soft shell clams or steamers, they're also called, live in the mud. So they use their foot to bury themselves into the mud, and then they stick their siphon just out of the mud to be able to feed and spawn and breathe.
Mm-hmm.
And the pressure that they get from being underground actually keeps them closed. So they've evolved to have really, really small adductor muscles. So if we don't mimic that pressure in the hatchery with something, then they actually can't keep themselves closed, and they'll eventually be able to not eat and die.
Okay.
So this is how we keep just the right amount of pressure on the clams. And we call it a clam sandwich.
A clam sandwich. Amazing. All right, and then let's take a look at some oysters. All right, so we're gonna go back up to the food cell area, I think.
Yes.
Okay.
The oysters that we have today. And
all right. Before we check out the oysters, it looks like we've got some spawning happening. So this is Ben, you said, right? Hi, Ben. So what does spawning look like?
Well, hopefully one of these will start going here in just a second. I already had 4 males go. And usually shaking them around and shining them with some light sets them off. And this is kind of the only way you can tell the males from the females for the mussels is once they start to spawn, you can tell the difference between the males that are releasing sperm and the females that are shooting out eggs. We haven't had any females go yet. We've only had, I think, 5 males so far, which is pretty typical. It's usually always the males that start first. But once we get a hold of the sperm in the water, the females should follow shortly after. So very cool. But in the not too distant future, we'll have some action to show you.
All right. Well, how about we take a look at some oysters first, and then if you see any, shout, and we'll come back.
we'll be right here, Ben. So these are the oysters that we're conditioning. We condition oysters at 21 degrees Celsius. They are about 3 weeks away from us being able to spawn them.
Okay. So for your hatchery season, which species do you do first, and what order do they go?
We start with mussels because that's the highest biomass of animals that we have to produce. We have to start nice and early so that we can meet the need. And then we do clams, and then we do oysters.
Okay. Amazing.
We go grow scallops as well from Bangor.
We grow scallops on an experimental basis. So that species is really difficult to grow because they're a boreal species. So the larvae don't tolerate temperatures above like 16 degrees Celsius, which means that their larval stage lasts a really, really long time. And that is the stage that they're most difficult to care for.
Mm-hmm.
There are other hatcheries on the East Coast that grow bay scallops, which are different and easier to grow. I don't know whether that question was about sea scallops or.
I think it was just general scallops. And have you guys now successfully grown scallops, sea scallops here?
We're working on it. We were able to set a small number of sea scallops from our last batch, which was really exciting, and will inform how we do it in the future.
Amazing. So lots of actual research happening here, as well as your commercial side where you're selling the organisms, right?
Yep.
So
yeah, that's part of our nonprofit mission, is that all of the profits that we make from our seed sales just feeds right back into the education and research programs.
Okay, so the Down East Institute focused on research, education, and supporting the aquaculture industry. Amazing. All right. I think we have time for a few more questions. So if people want to put their questions into the chat, we're going to head back out into the entryway so that it's a little bit less loud with all of the equipment. And then I have a couple wrap up questions for you, Brady.
Awesome.
All right.
Got a male too.
Oh, before we go, we've got some muscle spawning.
Okay, that's a male. He's shooting out lots and lots of sperm right now.
And how would you tell the difference between the male and the female?
So the sperm comes out and it just kind of is wispy. It just kind of dissipates into the water. When you see a female start to go, from a distance, it can look kind of similar, but if you look really, really close, you can see individual tiny, tiny microscopic eggs coming out, and they kind of stay suspended in the water.
Awesome.
It's kind of one of those things where you kind of have to do it a bunch before you really get the hang of it.
Yeah. How long have you been working here?
This is my 11th year.
Amazing. That's great. Very cool. Well, thank you. Great to meet you.
Thank you.
All right. So, do we have any we have questions.
A lot of questions.
All right,
Okay.
lots of questions.
So if they are grown in the lab, how well do these animals do when they're released into the wild?
I'm assuming that the lab is asking about the hatchery. Yes. Okay. So they do well in the wild. We have to acclimate them to the ambient water temperature, so whatever water temperature it is right outside, so that they don't get a shock and become stressed and die. But as long as we do that before they leave the hatchery, they tend to do very well.
All right.
Okay, from Beals Elementary School, going back to the algae, how long does it take for the algae to be ready to be fed out?
It takes 5 to 7 days from the time that you first inoculate a culture for all of the cells in that container to take up the nutrients and multiply themselves and become nice and dark and ready to feed out.
All right.
Okay, Searsport District Middle School, how big are the aquaculture farms and how many shellfish do they make each year?
Oh, that's a great question. It's a tough one for me.
I can answer.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah, so our aquaculture farms in Maine vary on size. So our smallest farms are like 400 square feet, so they're pretty small. And then some of our bigger farms might be a couple of acres. But the scale of aquaculture in Maine is actually not that big. So we do have farms up and down the coast, but a lot of them are small farms and they're operated by families or by groups of friends, and they might have a few, like 100,000 oysters on them at a time. I'm not sure the exact numbers, but there's a really cool website that's included in our Bivalve curriculum, which I'll send everyone a link to. And on there, you can actually check out where different farms are located and see the footprint of the farm. So on like a map, you would see how big that farm was.
Okay, great question from the Washington Academy chemistry class. They're wondering if the oxygen levels need to be adjusted when algae is added to a tank.
Ooh, good question. No, we don't adjust the oxygen when algae is added to the tank. We do have to adjust the CO2 to be able to culture the algae well. But the oxygen levels we don't touch.
All right.
From Searsport Middle School, have we had outbreaks of viruses or bacteria that have killed shellfish before?
Definitely. We have had them, and I'm not sure how to like focus that more to answer it. But yeah, there have been crashes. People get sick from eating shellfish, but it's not super common.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I mean, I think it's the kind of thing like anytime that you're, farming, you want to take care of your animals, and animals that are well taken care of, like our aquaculture animals in Maine, tend to be much happier and much healthier. And so they survive better, and anyone who's eating them is doing usually pretty well health-wise. So
Okay. So from Ashland, when we collect worms for fishing and keep them in a container, if one dies, it affects the whole bucket of worms. Is there a similar situation with bivalves?
Definitely. Um, Especially in a larvae tank, when some of the larvae die, um, then bacteria and mostly bacteria come in and break down the tissues in there. And so that gives the bacteria a chance to grow and do really well. And so that could uh, detrimentally, or that could harm the other animals that are in the tank.
Okay, so keeping an eye on how all of them are doing is important. Yeah. All right. How are we doing on time?
It is 10:46.
Okay, so I know a lot of people may have to go. We'll stay on an extra 5 minutes, but to those of you who do have the end of your class coming up, thank you again for joining us. We're so grateful to have you, and we will be able to send you a bunch of resources about the Down East Institute's education programs and about the Maine Aquaculture Innovation Center's education programs, including a link to our Bivalve curriculum, which includes a video and more about the hatchery process and the biology, anatomy, and life cycle of bivalves. So check out those resources. But for those of you who don't have to go, we'll take another couple minutes, if that's all right, just to answer some last wrap-up questions.
From Millbridge, does your institute do any reproduction with crabs or lobsters?
We have in the past. We're not focusing so much on lobster production right now. And to my knowledge, we've never grown crabs.
Okay, so yes to lobsters, not sure, probably not to crabs.
Okay, some logistical questions. So when is the best time to visit DEI to see it in full production or see a spawning event?
I think the best time is March, late March.
Okay.
And we have a lot of the systems running and we're still actively producing.
You heard it here first. Come in March.
Call me first.
Call her first. Fair enough.
From Searsport Middle School, how big is the facility?
Oh, I don't know.
Well, there's the whole hatchery room we saw, and then there's a whole nother wing of the building that has another 2 wet labs, right, and a dry lab. So with microscopes, and then there's also a specialized ocean acidification lab, which is pretty cool as well. So, and of course, right here we have the touch tank, which is one of the most fun things to come check out.
As well as our conference area and offices. We also have a residence hall and a guest house where the interns for the summer stay.
Yeah.
I thought you were looking for a number. I don't have a number.
Oh, no, that's okay. Yeah, and I've heard that this is a great place to intern if you are a high school student or a college student that wants to learn more about the hatchery process.
Definitely, yeah. If you want to learn more about the hatchery process or just shellfish in general, get a hold of us and we'll make it happen.
Awesome, amazing. Do we have more questions? Okay, let's pick a few last wrap-up questions here that are covering a lot of our material. I love how enthusiastic you guys are. This is great.
Kind of off that last comment, they're wondering, is it expensive to run an organization like this? And how did you get into this career? And what education do you need?
Okay, I love those questions. Those are great ones.
Yeah, this facility is expensive to run. We have lots of different sources of revenue to keep us going. So the shellfish sales, as well as our research grants and state and federal funding. And I got into this career by studying ecology and environmental sciences at the University of Maine. When I graduated, I didn't have any vision of what I wanted to do. So I was sending out my application everywhere and landed a job here as a hatchery technician. And that was over 6 years ago. Since then, I've been promoted to the hatchery manager, which has been really exciting. And to get my job or a job in shellfish, I think it's less about having the right background and more about being passionate and like motivated.
Yeah. I can answer the question too, a little bit about my background. So I went to college also for environmental science. And I'm from Maine and I wanted to come back to Maine to work. And so I started working on an oyster boat. And there I realized that aquaculture was really cool and I wanted to just keep doing stuff with aquaculture. So I don't actually work in this hatchery. I do a lot more work across the state with farms that are out on the water. But I love coming to see what you guys are doing here. And I think that one of the really cool things about aquaculture as well is you don't necessarily have to go to college to do aquaculture. And you also don't even need to like go into an existing facility like this one. You could actually start your own farm if you wanted to be out on the water and really doing things that are super hands-on. And I think a lot of aquaculture is really hands-on, and that's awesome and really fun. And we saw in the hatchery today, you guys build so much of your own stuff. So that's a lot of tinkering. It's like, seems like Legos for adults.
Yeah, exactly. A little bit more expensive.
More expensive and more shellfish.
Someone's wondering if the links to like things that you've been talking about will be sent out.
Absolutely. So everybody who registered for this webinar, will make sure to send you a follow-up email in the next couple of weeks that includes links to the Down East Institute's information and the Maine Aquaculture Innovation Center's information. So I would say with that, I think we're gonna wrap up our webinar, but thank you so much to Bree. Thanks to our camera crew and our question asker. Thanks to all of you guys for tuning in to listen. And the last thing, if you could say one thing for our audience as a takeaway, what would it be?
Oh, don't be intimidated by all the information and expertise that there is. If this is something that's interesting to you, even if you never even thought about it before, if it inspired you or something, please reach out and we can make something happen, I'm sure.
Amazing. All right. I think that's the best place to end it. So thanks, everybody. Have a great rest of your day and check out the Down East Institute.